Hi everybody from TechnoLost and welcome to this video comparison between the Sony Xperia Tablet Z and the Samsung Nexus 10. Well, we have so many things to say about these two devices that I thought we will split this comparison video into. The first half of this video we talk about the hardware differences, the differences for concerned design and materials, as well as the difference dealing with the OS and the UI of these two devices. Well, let's start with this first half, and let's start from the size of these two devices. Here we have the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. We have 266 millimeters wide, 172 millimeters high, and we have 6.9 for what concerns the thickness of this device. So it's a very thin device. And it has, it's a very light device too. It's just 495 grams. So it's one of the lightest devices for what concerns Android tablets of this size. I mean, 10.1 inches. And generally speaking, it's one of the lightest device across any kind of operating system. 495 grams. It's very light device, lightweight device, I would say. Then what else? We have the Samsung Nexus 10. The size for what concerns this device, 263.9 millimeters wide, 177.6 millimeters tall, and it's just 8.9 millimeters thick. So comparing these two devices together, let's put the Nexus 10 over the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, just to show you that hope you can see the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. It's just a tad wider. It's just 2 millimeters wider. Why, if we put on the other side the Sony Xperia Tablet Z on top of the Galaxy Nexus 10, we can see that the Galaxy Nexus 10 is more it's about half a centimeter taller, so quite taller, and it weighs 100 grams more than the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. This doesn't mean that the Nexus 10, which weighs exactly 603 grams, it's a heavy device. If you do consider that devices like the iPad 3, for instance, weigh 650 grams. Here we have 603 grams. But in respect to the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, this device weighed 100 grams more, which is not negligible difference, let me tell you. Then, if we give a look to the device, we have, much simpler design for what concerns the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. We have many, edges and corner here, but to me, at least to me, I do underline, this device seems to be more elegant. Even for what concerns materials, we have these mineral anti-scratch and not scratchable, glass. Sorry, I cannot find the word now. We have the backside of the device with this rubber finish that has a wonderful grip when you hold this device in your hands. And what else? Maybe we have some kind of fiberglass material used in the Sony Xperia Z for what concerns the side. I do remind you that this device has IP55 and IP57 certification, which means that it's water resistant and dust proof. Just to have this kind of certification, we can find these plastic latches here just in front of here we have the headphone jack, sorry. Then we have, what else here, the micro USB port and the micro USB port, yes, and here we have the micro SD card slot and the micro SIM slot. So this is the design and the materials used for this Sony Xperia Tablet Z. We have, of course, the display, which is 10.1 inches. We have the front-facing camera here. On the left side, we have the power button, the volume rocker, the LED, which is a flash LED, quite it's a very bright LED. We have this kind of pogo pin for the docking station, and here on the left and on the right edge of this device, on the corner, sorry, we have the dual stereo speaker with two, the sound coming out from these two sides. So each corner here has on the back on this side the output of its own speaker. So this is the Sony Xperia TZ design and materials. Now let's give a look to the Nexus 10. No, there are not so sharp edges, more rounded edges, like as you can see. We have here frontal dual stereo speaker instead of side stereo speaker like the Sony Xperia TZ. We have 10.055 inches display, so a touch smaller diagonal than the Sony Xperia TZ. We have mineral anti-scratch glass on the front. We have, I guess, nothing but polycarbonate on the back with this rubber finish, as well as for the Sony Xperia TZ, which is very comfortable to hold in the hand. We have the main camera, which is 5 megapixel, not backside illuminated sensor, it's a pity, but we have at least the flash LED, which we don't have, I forgot to tell you, on the Sony Xperia TZ. We just have the 8 megapixel backside illuminated. This is an Eximor R sensor. We even have the IRD blaster here on the Sony Xperia TZ, which I forgot to tell you about. So these are the sides and materials used in this Nexus 10. For what concerns the side of the device, we have the pogo pin connector here. On the left side, we have the micro USB connector and the headphone jack, 3.5 headphone jack, of course. On the right side, we have the mini HDMI port. So we have direct HDMI output. We don't have direct HDMI output on the Sony Xperia TZ, but we have to use the micro USB via MHL adapter. We have the power switch here and the volume rocker. On the front-facing camera, we have the LED flash, which is here, is a pulsing LED with a very nice effect. So this is the sightseeing of these two devices, we can say. Now that we saw the design, the materials, let's analyze the interior of these two tablets. I mean the hardware specs. We have the GPU, which is an Adreno, which is the Qualcomm APQ 8064, which is a Snapdragon Pro quad-core processor, clocked at 1.5 GHz with a production surface of 28 nanometer. We have 2 GB of RAM, and the GPU is the Adreno 320. Here we have nothing but the Exynos 5 family GPU, which is, to be more precise, a 50-50 GPU. Is a dual-core GPU clocked at 1.7 GHz. We always have a production surface of 20 nanometer, and we have 2 GB of RAM, and the GPU is the ARM Mali T604. Sorry. So we have different kind of architecture here. Quad core clocked at 1.5 GHz, dual core clocked at 1.7 GHz, Cortex A15 Snapdragon Pro, 2 GB of RAM on both tablets. So we have two very good hardware architecture. Although we don't have on both devices the latest and the top hardware architecture actually on the market, we have very good hardware architecture. For what concerns the internal storage, we have 16 or 32 GB internal storage here on the Sony Xperia TZ, but we can use, I do remind you, the micro SD card slot expansion. I'm using a 64 SDHC micro SD card on the Sony Xperia TZ. We have 16 or 32 GB on the Nexus 10, but we cannot expand the internal storage here. That's really a pity to me. Then let's give a look to the display. We have 10.1 inches and 10.055 inches on the Nexus 10. Resolution 19 1900 pixel for 1200 pixel on the Sony Xperia TZ. We have 2560 pixel for 1600 pixel on the Nexus 10. So that's a crazily high resolution on the Nexus 10. We have the density, which is 300 pixels per inch on the Nexus 10, and we have 224 pixels per inch on the Sony Xperia TZ. The display on the Sony Xperia TZ is nothing but a TFT, although we're using the Brilliant engine. But we have the PLS display here on the Nexus 10. PLS is some kind of proprietary, technology from Samsung. It's more or less the same than IPS. But we have very good viewing angles on both devices, very high brightness, so no problem for concern direct sunlight visibility on both these two great devices. I told you we had stereo speaker on both devices, frontal stereo speaker, side stereo speakers. We have IP55 and 57 certification, so waterproof and dustproof for the Sony Xperia TZ, nothing for the Nexus 10. We have the possibility to have LTE connectivity on the Sony Xperia TZ. We don't have this. There are only Wi-Fi version for what concerns the Nexus 10. We have the battery 6000 mAh battery on the Sony Xperia TZ, and we have 9000 mAh battery on the Nexus 10. More or less, they last the same. Aside the battery capacity, they more or less last the same amount of time, which is quite good, especially on the Sony Xperia TZ, thanks to the stamina mode. If we put this device in standby mode, we have very long time standby. We have something special, let's say, on both devices. We have the double tap to unlock the devices here on the Sony Xperia TZ. Here we go. Well, we have the vibration here on the Nexus 10, which is not common usually into tablet, but to me is quite interesting. So we've seen more or less the difference will concern hardware specs, design and materials. We thought a little bit about the display, so let's give a look more in depth for what concern the display. I told you we have very good display. Let's put the brightness to the maximum level on both devices. Here we go, brightness, okay, maximum level, and here too, display, brightness, and here we go. So very bright display on both devices, very good viewing angles, both on the Sony Xperia TZ in horizontal and both in landscape and in portrait, as well as on this Nexus 10. We don't have problem for what concern, viewing angles, very good. Moreover, what else? We have different color saturation, more saturated color on the Nexus, on the Sony Xperia TZ, but we have of course a better sharpness on the Nexus 10. Of course, we have highest resolution here. So let's give a look more in depth at these differences. Let's load this my album, SD card, and here we have the test photo, as well as here show hidden. Okay, so the first differences I want to talk to you about is the different color saturation. We have the first things is it's not the color saturation. First things I want to talk to you about is the color temperature. That's why I uploaded the white background. We have here more yellow white than on the Nexus 10. So the Nexus 10 is a little bit colder for concern display white temperature, while it's a little bit warmer on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. I don't know if you can appreciate the difference using this camera, but hope so. Anyway, believe me, the Sony Xperia Tablet Z is a tad warmer than the Nexus 10. For what concern instead the contrast, we have a better contrast on the Nexus 10. If you give a look to the darker side of this picture, you can see the not the last column, but the first before the last one, as well as for the lightest part of this image. Let me see if I can manage to. It's not easy, sorry guys. Anyway, it's very easy to perceive that we can see this row before the last one on the Nexus 10. And here we go. Maybe it's okay. No. Sorry guys, it's not that easy. Anyway, we can see more easily the row before the last one on the Nexus 10 than on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. The last row and the second one is not even visible. They seems to be merged together on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. We have a slightly better behavior on the darker side of the image. We can distinguish at least a little bit the, not the last row, but the one before the last row. They are not completely merged together as it was for the white part. So we have a better contrast on the Nexus 10 than on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. So warmer Sony Xperia Tablet Z, lower contrast. Colder Nexus 10, better contrast. For what concern color saturation, we have much more saturated color on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, not only for the Bravia Engine 2. If I do, just let me show you, if I do disable the Sony Bravia Engine, we can see that, here we go, the colors are anyway warmer on the more saturated on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, which, you know, makes the Nexus 10 seems to be washed out. But believe me, if you use the Nexus 10 alone, you won't even notice this difference. Of course, now they are, you know, you can see them all together, so you see such big difference. But for what concern instead, of course, sharpness of the image, the Nexus 10, it's better than the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, having, you know, such a higher resolution. We can see the image is a touch sharper on the Nexus 10. Nevertheless, you know, we have two wonderful displays, both for what concern sharpness and for what concern color reproduction. Just to give you an idea of the difference for what concern color saturation, just let me load a few other samples. I do remind you that I've completely disabled the Bravia Engine 2 on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z, but as you can see, colors are warmer in any case. So just to give you a look of how wonderful these two displays are, really great. These are pictures I made myself, and you know, I hope you can see that the Nexus 10 display is extremely sharp. It's such a pleasure to see this device, really very nice. Just another picture here. Oops, not this one, this one. And just give a look to the details of these leaves. Really incredible. This is the Sony Xperia Z, and this is the Nexus 10, even sharper. The last image, just to have an idea of the color saturation, is this one. You see warmer color on the more saturated color on the Sony Xperia Z. So we have less contrast, a little bit less sharpness, but better color saturation. We have a little bit sharper, we have a little bit more contrast but less color saturation on the Nexus 10. But just let me tell you, we have two wonderful display on both these devices. So this is what concerns the display. So for this first part of the comparison, we still need to analyze the UI and the operating system. We have Android version 4.2.2 on the Sony Xperia Z, and we have Android version 4.3 on the Nexus 10. Well, of course, here we have few Sony customization made by the OEM on this Sony Xperia Z. Let's start from this first navigation, from this first bar here. This is some kind of shortcut bar. Just let me show you. We can insert both icons for concern application, or even we can create a folder to put some application, the most used one, which is really useful. As you can see, we have the phablet interface on both devices, which, let me tell you, it's really a shame. Well, on devices with such big display, 10.1 inches, it's really uncomfortable to use with the phablet interface, but don't know why Google decided to go this way, maybe to have a more uniform UI across both phone and tablet, of course, but I guess tablet and phones must have different, UI. Anyway, beside this some kind of shortcut bar here, we have some personalization made by Sony on this notification bar. We have this quick toggle here, and we can even decide what kind of toggle to put into this quick toggle bar, which is really interesting. Another interesting thing are the mini apps. Mini apps are nothing but the few apps that goes into overlay like this, so we can do whatever we want, but we always have this app here until we decide, of course, to close it. This is really useful, and we have several mini apps like browser, notepad, calculator, and so on. Of course, we can install new apps from the market, as well as we can, if we want, transform some widget into a mini app, which may be really useful. So these are few of all the customization made by Sony. We even have the custom music player, which is the Walkman music player, as well as we have, for instance, a custom gallery. As you already seen, we can pinch to zoom to select the different sides of the preview of the thumbnails, or even have this kind of globe view for the picture we have taken. Of course, we have many other apps made by Sony for this Sony Xperia Z, but these are the most interesting customization made by the Japanese OEM. Then we have of course, the Nexus 10, which has Android 4.3, so stock Android version. We have even here the phablet interface, of course, but this is a stock phablet interface. So we have the notification bar on the left and the quick toggle here on the right. We cannot decide what kind of toggle put into this list here. At least if you don't unlock this device and gain root privilege, then you can install a custom ROM or even modify the stock one to decide what to put here. For instance, this is just one of the many possibilities that you can have unlocking your device. We have of course a stock application for concern, for instance calendar, while we have a customized calendar here on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. Of course we have all the new stuff introduced by Android version 4.3 here, like OpenGL AES 3.0 support on this Nexus 10. So these are all the aspects for what concerns differences between the Sony Xperia Tablet Z and the Nexus 10 for this first half of the comparison. So I'll see you in the next video. In the next half of this video we will talk about the multimedia side of the device, on the performance side, games, browsing, and then we will say the pros and cons of these two great tablets. So for what concerns the first half, that's all. Once more, thanks for watching and bye from TechnoLost.